Hello, this is Rob Mazak, and I'd like to take a moment to welcome you to the Life by Mazak podcast channel. Here on this channel, anything is possible. Any subject will and usually is discussed, and there's no telling how this message will unfold as we work through an idea, through an experience, or through a thought. These subjects come from the vast amount of information and experience through spirit, through life lessons, and from working with a lot of other people. Scripts are never used on this channel, and the message simply unfolds as the subject is discussed. Follow along and see where it leads us, or more specifically, where it leads me. These podcasts are produced in the hopes of helping others to benefit, to grow, and to excel in their own human experience. At Life by Mazak, we work towards helping you achieve wellness for your mind, your body, and your soul using many specialized services. Services that include psychic medium and tarot readings, quantum healing hypnosis, past life regression, intuitive Reiki healing, life coaching, and many other services. If you enjoyed this podcast, please click the like button and share this with others. Our goal is to reach as many people as we can with the knowledge that is shared on this podcast channel. Hello, everyone. This is Rob, as you noticed from the intro, and I am up very early in the morning. You've heard that saying before, or that idea before, probably, that if you get woken up in the night, especially around that 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock time in the morning, that it is your guides or the higher power or the divine trying to get your attention and asking you to get up, meditate, connect, to hear a message, to listen, whatever that paradigm looks like. And that definitely happened to me today. I just couldn't seem to get a decent amount of sleep last night for some reason. I was working really hard yesterday. I was on the phone most of the day or on my computer, meetings late into the night. Work has gotten kind of crazy, and perhaps it's that late night cup of coffee that caused that to happen, which it normally doesn't for me. However, when you don't sleep a lot or you wake up a lot, you're going through the phases of the theta consciousness that dreams are processed in or through. And so me waking up many times during the night obviously caused me to have dreams that I remember, or at least some of them. And a lot of them were of doing work, the kind of work I do. I'm an operations and planning officer. And I don't know exactly what that's telling me. Maybe it's talking about changes that are needed. I don't know. But the one that really stuck out to me that I wanted to talk about and kind of dive into the topic of that dream is where I found myself, and I felt like myself, this older white dude in this dream in an airport, not necessarily in the airport, but it had to do with an airport. And I found myself kind of in this holding area where it felt like we were being held for some reason. There was a lot of people. It felt like it was in an Asian country because there was a lot of Asian type people around. It felt like one of the Koreas to me. Maybe that's because I have experience having been in South Korea for 4 years. I'm not sure why that is relevant. However, the relevance really came to me because I woke up after having that dream of being in this holding space and then getting some help to walk out of the holding space where there really wasn't any bars or doors or anything like that. And then finding my way through the crowd and kind of disappearing in the crowd and quote unquote getting away from whomever was trying to hold me and the others. And I was getting help from somebody from the military. Of course, I'm in the military. If you've heard all my podcasts, 30 years in uniform. So that kind of makes sense. But I woke up feeling the message that I was being told that I was in a prison without doors and that I needed to figure out a way to break out of my own prison, the prison of my own design. I say my own design because we as human beings, especially later in life, the product of our environment, our culture, our learning, the things that have been said to us, our past, all kind of winds up into our subconscious and it gets kind of run in an automatic program. And you've heard that many times from me as well if you listen to my podcasts. And it is interesting that the message even continued further by saying, or repeating a saying that I've heard before is that the best way to enslave somebody is to not let them know that they're slaves. Give them the illusion of free will and choice, even though they really don't have any. And I think that's probably what has been happening for quite a while in the reality that we live in, whatever that reality is. But I do feel like we are all part of a system that would be very difficult to escape from, at least in an alive state. It really pushed me to really begin looking at free will and consciousness again. And I've looked at this a lot. I studied it in philosophy class, well, a number of years ago, of course, but I have studied it. I have looked at it. I've written some papers about it for class. And, just when you think you understand free will or consciousness, or at least have a grasp on the ideas or basic ideas, somebody comes along and really changes your dynamic. So I was listening to somebody actually this morning before I got on here for this podcast. And I'll probably not do justice to the talk as I repeat it, but she was saying that there was a big difference between free will and conscious will. Free will meaning, in her opinion, that the actions and things that come through free will are the product of like cause and effect. Cause of things, maybe a brain tumor, that changes you from a high level surgeon to a pedophile or something like that, or it changes your ability or things or processes to make choices that you're normally used to making. And so that kind of begs the question, though, where does free will come from, or where does the choice of anything come from? It obviously comes through this process we call the brain and the neurons and the connections and the firings of all the chemicals and the electrical impulses. But where does that get fed from? I mean, it is quite the conundrum. We understand a lot about the brain, but at the same time, there's a lot we don't. And it really is difficult, I think, to really pin down whether we actually have free will. I mean, the way I described free will in one of my papers, to me, at least at that time, it felt like there was always a way to make choices, at least with our conscious mind. That our conscious mind is that part of us that gives us the ability to at least have the illusion we are making choices and that we think we have the choice to make. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. Maybe that's just giving us an idea or a purpose in life to think that we are in control or have some part of that control in our lives, and maybe we don't. Maybe it just gives us that illusion to help us feel like we're conscious and we're human and we're having an experience that we get to choose. But do we really? I mean, I've looked at a lot of different scientific studies, listened to a couple more yesterday for example, they will put somebody in a functional MRI machine. So basically, it's an MRI that doesn't give you still pictures, but you can kind of watch the brain do whatever, or the body, but in this case, the brain, do whatever it's going to do through the task that you're asking the client or the person or the patient to go through. And in one such study, they were simply asking them to look at two numbers, left and right, on some screen while they're in this functional MRI machine and deciding whether they wanted to add, subtract, multiply, or divide those numbers. And what they found was that up to 4 seconds before they made a choice or consciously made a choice, they could see that the decision had already been made in the brain, or the parts of the brain that is designed for decision making. I don't know what that is, and I'm sure I've heard it many times because I'm a medical guy as well, but I don't remember what it is. But the point is that apparently many of the things that we think are choices are already made by some part of our brain or our mind. 4 seconds seems like an eternity in the decision making process, especially if you're in danger. That could be the point of whether you survive something or not, because the decision, 4 seconds, that's a long time if you're getting ready to walk out in front of a car. But they've even done studies that even push it farther than that, where they've noticed that decisions are being made in the brain, or the processing of those decisions are being made in the brain as much as 10 seconds before the activity is actually in the conscious mind thinking it's making a choice. Me personally, I think that there's always a way to make a choice, but in this research and the science, it really begs the question, do we really have a choice like we think we do? Are we really here on some predetermined or deterministic process in life, or all the things that are happening to us? Or are we just here along for the ride because we're in some kind of perhaps simulation or some kind of, I don't know, prison of the mind, that we're here to experience something that maybe we chose to come here to do? I mean, if you look at reincarnation, assuming that it's actually a thing, which it seems like it based on all the things I do with clients and services I have, it seems like there's memories that they should not know about, and they experience those lives as if they've been there before and done those things. You would think that if reincarnation is real, that we maybe not in a human body, but in some type of existence made a choice, or make a choice to come and have the experience. So I think that there are choices all over the place. Whether we actually are the ones doing that, that's quite the question to answer, because a lot of philosophers, scientists, religious scholars have been trying to figure that out and argue against it this way and that way. But I don't know if there's an exact answer. All I know is that science is helping us understand that we do make decisions a lot differently than we think we do, which is kind of disturbing and kind of not disturbing, because if we could totally prove that everything that we do is simply just an experience that we get to have, or we're supposed to have, and then we're supposed to be doing all those things whether we have a choice or not, that would really change society. I mean, I think that keeping people on the paradigm that they have a choice and that the choices that they make are up to them, I think really helps develop morality. Not that the right choices, or the right actions, I should say, are made by people, but I do believe that if we were to totally convince the population of this planet, this place, that everything we do is already determined, and that, what's the point of trying to evolve or be something different or do something different or become rich or become the president or whatever, because it's already been made up. It's already been determined before you were born what's going to happen. I think people would kind of give up and they wouldn't really rise to the challenge or try to become a better human being, which I think is really important. I don't think that, in my opinion, that being here as a human is an accident for sure. I mean, you've heard me say this many times that scientists have kind of put some numbers together that the odds of us being here are 400 trillion to 1. And I mean, so we're definitely not an accident. So for whatever reason we're here, you can argue that in many ways. We are here on purpose. And so the experiences that we have are certainly meant for us to have. It is hard to imagine that we were coming here or that we are here simply to be a vessel and to understand what it's like to live a specific life with very specific outcomes and actions and things that are going to happen to us. I would like to think that any creator would love to see his creation figure out things and grow as a person and grow as a human being or any type of being and become a much better product than when they were first born here and raised here, and become, something just spectacular. And then that would help a creator develop human beings even more so as they evolve and go, okay, well, these kind of experiences, these kind of things that we introduce to human beings will help them grow in a very specific way. And so the next generations will be different and we'll be able to have them evolve much faster. Evolve for what purpose? Couldn't entirely answer that. I mean, there's a lot of ideas there as well. But free will is a very, very interesting topic. And it is something that we all have probably thought of. And like I said, many people have tackled with the definition and the ideas of it. I don't usually read a lot of things online, but I wanted to read a few definitions that I found online that might help us understand what I'm trying to get at. So some of those definitions are voluntary choice or decision, the freedom of humans to make choices that are not determined by prior causes or by divine intervention. That's an interesting one. The ability to act and make choices independent of outside influences. And one other one is the power of acting without the constraint of necessity or fate, the ability to act at one's own discretion. I mean, we've probably watched many movies about this type of question, or at least the question or the idea has been put into the movie, especially when you look at some of the movies about aliens coming here and we as humans might express the fact that we have free will and that we have the ability to navigate our own life and that we choose things in our best interests or the interests we feel are important. And many of those movies also return the question or answer the question with, well, sure, you have the ability to choose what type of toothpaste you might want, what kind of car you would like to drive, what color the car would be, or whatever. But very simple choices that don't seem to equate to the massive definition of free will that most of us think we have. I mean, here in the United States, we are a free society in definition or by the definitions of the laws that we have. But we have so many laws, you really wonder if we're really free because it doesn't take much to step outside the boundaries of that freedom and become unfree because we disobeyed a law when there's many, 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 many laws. But it seems like the more they want us to think we're free, I mean, I'm not just saying the United States, there's a lot of free countries, but they have to keep reminding us that we're the land of the free, the home of the brave, and all of that. Why would someone or a government or government entities as a whole always have to remind us that we're free and that we are free to do things and we're free to make our choices if we, in fact, were free to do that? I don't think we're as free as most of us would like to think, for sure, at least in the paradigm that we live in now. This is a very difficult topic to kind of pin down on what I'm trying to relay or deliver here in this podcast. But I think going back to my dream about freeing myself from the prison I think I'm in, or I don't even know I'm in, makes a lot of sense. And that could mean a lot of things in my life. It could mean a lot of different things or meet many definitions of what's going on. And I think that would be everybody that's listening to this or anybody in this world, that we are probably prisons of our own mind in many ways, in some ways that we don't even know that we are prisoners. And, that once again can come back down to our upbringing from, a young age, subconscious getting bombarded with what it's going to consider normal for probably the rest of your life and acting on that because our subconscious is what runs our lives. And if it's programmed in a certain way, especially early on, we are going to live out our life in many ways without even knowing that that's happening. And in many ways, that could become our prison. In other words, we're going to be doing the same thing every day, having the same experiences every day, going through the same crazy relationships that we always do, making the same mistakes that we always do, having the same fears that we always have, on and on. And we don't even know that we are prisoners to our subconscious. Our subconscious serves us well in many ways because it helps us survive. It helps us get through this life. It's obviously making decisions for us before our conscious mind realizes that it thinks it's in charge and is making those decisions. But I do think that there is some choice being made somewhere, somehow within us, whether that's a program or it's programming from, our experiences in life or otherwise. I do believe choices are being made. I don't know if what I initially thought years ago about us actually having conscious free will to make choices that we think we're making is a reality. I do believe that somewhere within us we are making choices. So is that a definition of free will? Or is that some divine intervention or some programming that's within us that we came here with through our DNA, our genes, or whatever, and not really our conscious mind or what we consider our free will through consciousness? Consciousness is even hard to describe because consciousness can be so many things. Just a simple definition of consciousness is being aware of oneself or that you exist. Many philosophers have wrestled with that question and that answer, if you will. And I don't think anybody's really settled on the actual complete definition. But listening to some interesting research lately, it seems that consciousness can be broken down into very simple ideas, like a plant, for example, could be conscious. Everything could be conscious and probably is. It's probably aware of itself, anything all the way down to atoms. When you get up into the levels of complexity of our human mind, that consciousness then becomes very complicated. And it really seems like many of the processes happening in our mind that have been kind of wound in there and programmed, whether it's the subconscious or not, through all the connections of the neurons, the billions of neurons and the connections and the firings and all that, through experiences and all the inputs that we're getting through our five senses or more senses than that in some cases. What is really happening in our brain that is creating what we think is consciousness. What really is consciousness? Is consciousness part of free will? Or is free will part of consciousness? Or are they one and the same? Or are they separate? I mean, there's a lot of questions that I'm getting here more than giving answers, but I think that's the purpose of me talking on these podcasts. Is not to prove anything to people, but to kind of get people thinking about who we are and where we're going and what this life is all about, what this reality is all about. Because what is really real? What is the definition of real? We think we're solid, right? We think we're in a solid world, but that could all be happening between our ears, in our brain. It's in a dark space, relying on inputs through our senses and the experiences that we've had, and perhaps some things that have been brought in through birth that were pre-programmed or part of our DNA or our ancestry or any of that, that really brings in this complexity of what we think is consciousness and free will and choice. And I'm not saying we can't use our conscious mind to create something different in our life. And I think we can. I think it's important. Whether that's actually happening in our conscious mind or it comes up through our subconscious, I don't really care, honestly, personally, where the choice is made and whether it's really me doing it or me just realizing it doesn't matter. But I do think we should take the time to try to become a better human being. I do think we should take the time to become something different if we want. I mean, if we're happy just working, eating, consuming, and dying, cool. That's perfectly fine. I personally am not. I want to understand myself better than anybody could possibly understand somebody, which is really difficult because we're so complex. But I also want to have many other experiences. I want to have many different pathways. I want to move forward and do some things that seem to be being downtrodden by having to live in this reality, having to have money to pay for expenses and, living life and all that. That is a challenge now, isn't it? Is that where do we find ourselves within this massive complexity of this human body? Because it is very complex. But our identity is in there somewhere. And is it really us that's staring back in the mirror? Is that really us? Or is that just an outward expression that we're given to give us some semblance of being an existing being moving through time? That means we need something in the past to make it feel like we're moving forward because forward is all that we seem to experience. I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of work to do and a lot of things to tackle to get past a lot of these things that seem to be very automatic. Automatic meaning that, we don't have to necessarily think about doing things to live. I mean, when your body's hungry, it's going to give you signals. When it's thirsty, it's going to give you signals. When it's tired, it's going to give you signals. Your body and your consciousness and your brain and all that stuff, I think, is probably what's really driving who we are. But where does that come from? I would like to think that's really me. I hope it's me. But is it? I don't know. Like I said, I'm probably bringing up more questions than providing answers for. But I just wanted to talk about this morning since I got woken up. And I know now that if I get woken up at that early in the morning, that I need to get up and do something. This is what I usually do. And this is the time I get to do it because I have meetings every night this week for a lot of changes coming up. And so, finding time in the evening to do this, very challenging this week and probably for a little while. So I guess 3 o'clock it is, right? So is this really a choice or is this a voluntold thing? Did I volunteer to wake up early or was I voluntold that I needed to do this? See, there you go. Was it a choice or was it not a choice? I don't know. I really don't know. But I wanted to, throw these questions out, throw these ideas out, and see what you guys think. I do encourage you guys to go to my website and get on my contact page and, hey, reach out. My website is lifebymazak.com, lifebymazak.com. And I also have products and services and blog pages and all those kind of things. And I really look forward to working with people because when I work with others, I learn as well. Clients learn, I learn, everybody learns, regardless of where our choices come, where our experiences come from, who we are, or any of that I've brought up today. I think it's important that we share and we learn and we grow as best as we can consciously do that. I think that's our charge, to try to get command of who we are or figure out who we are and become a much better human being before we exit this place, because we all will someday. I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to working with you. Stay strong and live your life.